What's up? What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Pink Elephant. I am Shanae, and I'm excited that you're here. So I figured let's just do a girl chat because today is Tuesday. It's rainy outside. I don't have any plans. I do have a couple meetings today, but nothing that is too overwhelming. So today is a good day for girl chat. So let's talk about the past weekend. I'm gonna kind of comb my hair down a little bit, guys, so I can look presentable. So we just came off Mother's Day weekend, and Mother's Day weekend, of course, you guys know I lost my mom about 8 years ago now. So Mother's Day is always kind of tricky. I never know how I'm going to feel until I get to Mother's Day. So this past weekend, I was in Durham celebrating a friend's graduation from Duke University. Shout out to Toya. She graduated from the nurse practitioner school. Or from nurse practitioner. She got her nurse practitioner degree. Okay. So she is bossing up as always. So shout out to her. So I figured we could just chat a little bit. A lot has been going on, a lot has happened, a lot of new things has happened in my life. So I'm sure new things have happened for you. So we're going to get into a few things, and I am going to just adjust my camera real quick so that we can chat. All right. So first things first, for Mother's Day, I went in Ulta to smell some fragrances. I wanted a new fragrance, wasn't sure what I was looking for, but just wanted to try some new stuff out. You guys may have noticed that Versace has a new perfume out that is green, and I think it's called Green Extravaganza. I think is what it's called. I was able to smell that scent in Ulta, and it was amazing. So I will be adding that to my repertoire of fragrances. But I also smelled Burberry's new perfume called Goddess. And I wanted to just show you guys the bottle is so pretty. Um, and just kind of give you an idea of what you can expect if you decide to purchase this fragrance. So this is how the fragrance looks. It's very, very pretty. I love it. It definitely is giving like head wrap goddess vibes, but that is how it looks. Super pretty. Now, this fragrance has a vanilla scent to it. So if you're not into vanilla, that scent, then you wouldn't like this one. It's definitely very vanilla-y, very vanilla-y, but I absolutely love it. I actually got a chance to smell it inside the store. And then when I took it home, I've been wearing it because a fragrance is different in the store than it is on your body. So you want to kind of see what it feels like on your body. But it was nice. So it has a vanilla scent to it. And y'all, it's so hard to read the label on the back of the box, but nevertheless, this bottle is also meant to be refilled. So if you run out of this fragrance, you can get a refill and just add to the bottle. So that is what I recently got from Ulta. And I am in love again with the bottle. The bottle is so gorgeous. So gorgeous. All right, now let's get into some other things. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the topics that I've been discussing here recently. A couple topics came up. We talked about anxiety when it comes to social interactions. We talked about friendships, right? Mixing different friend groups and the anxiety of doing that. So if you are a person who, one, you don't hang out with a lot of people, two, you don't want to mix and mingle in big crowds, and three, you're a homebody. You can just stay at home and be okay, then this could be for you, right? So what I want to talk about is pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, because a lot of us would prefer to stay in our little bubble, stay in our shell. We don't need to be, we don't need to mix, we don't need to mingle. But if you are an entrepreneur, or if you have aspirations to start your own business, if you have aspirations to climb the corporate ladder, it requires you to come outside your shell, even if you don't want to. So, on my last video, I got a request to talk about how to have social interactions at work. All right. Now, I have done some corporate speaking engagements talking about networking. Okay. And the speaking engagement that sticks out most is the engagement that I did for a DEI group. So, if you guys aren't aware of what DEI stands for, it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay. So, a lot of organizations began to think about DEI in a new way after the pandemic and George Floyd and all the different things that took place within our country. So DE&I is something that was developed in order to draw attention to the fact that that is something that corporations must address and must pay attention to. Now, here we are in 2024. I definitely think that DE&I is starting to shift a bit, but it does not change the level of importance that it still has, I believe, on our nation. So anyway, so during that group, during that conversation that I led, I talked about how it feels to walk into a space and you don't know anyone, and starting conversations and networking. So it was a networking topic about how can you network when you're in a social situation at work. You're around people that you don't normally hang out with and you would not hang out with regularly if you didn't have to. So we all know what that feels like, to be around people where we don't really want to be. We really don't want to be around them, but we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. We have to. So let's get into that a little bit. Let's talk about that a little bit. All right. So I'm not going to lie. I do not like networking. I did not like networking at work. All right. I've worked in a corporate setting for over almost 11 years now. And it was definitely one of the things I had to grow into and learn how to manage. I'll give you a couple examples of some times where I found myself in odd positions and it kind of almost traumatized me in terms of being in corporate settings and having to socially interact with people. So the first one that I'll give is an example of when I got a new job. I got a new job and I had to go to Florida for a week to train in this role. All right. So when I went to Florida, I was by myself, of course. I didn't know anyone at this job. And I was a fish out of water because it was a whole new position for me. So during I think it was like a lunch that we were having, I sat at the end of the table where there was it was a man, he was there, and then it was some other um, I was probably maybe one of maybe four Black people in this group of, let's say, 30 people. All right. So I'm one of four African American people. And then I probably was two of the four women. It was only two women out of the four Black people. Okay. So just track with me. You do the math. Okay. Just follow the fact that there were not many women. And then there were only a few or a couple of Black women. Okay. So that's that in this situation. So I'm at the end of the table, and the guy, he is a white guy, and he begins to ask me questions about myself because he'd been in this company for a couple of years, but he was moving into a new role. So he had to come to orientation with us newbies. All right. So you already know what it's like when somebody has been in a company and they feel like, why should I even have to be here? I already know the company. I know everything. So he already had that level of whatever you want to call that starting out. So I peeped it. I peeped his disgust by the fact that he's with us little peasants and he didn't really want to be there in the first place. I got it. Okay. So he began to ask me questions about my career. Now, this is the thing about social interactions at work. A lot of times when you are in a networking environment at work, the questions that come up are specific to your career. Okay. I don't necessarily get the question about where I went to college anymore. That's very rare that would come up, but I do get questions around, my background, right? So they want to know your background and what you've done and how many years you've been working in the industry and what roles have you had. That always comes up. So number one, being prepared to have that discussion, I think you should definitely just be prepared to read off your resume at a moment's notice, because that is part of socially interacting and networking in a work environment. Okay. That's number one. So when someone comes to ask you like, oh, hey, how are you? I'm so-and-so, what's your name? I'm so and so. And oh, okay, well, how long have you been with the company? I've been with the company for 2 years. And prior to that, I was with this company. And then prior to that, I was there. So I've done a lot in the marketing, and I've done a lot in advertising, shifted from advertising and kind of went over to the corporate to the a corporate side of it. And now I'm here managing more of the executive level. You got to have all your words. You got to have all your words to have the conversations. Okay. So that is one of the things that automatically is going to typically come up when you're in a networking environment at work. So in this particular instance where the guy is talking to me, he's asking me, he wants to ask me those questions, but let me tell you how he asked me these questions. So it went something like this. Oh, so where are you from? And I told him where I was from. I told him where I lived. I lived in Charleston, South Carolina. He was like, oh, okay. So what were you doing before you got to this role? And I told him, I said, I worked for Lash. I was doing a lot of pharmaceutical consulting, been doing that for over 5 years, ended up being a senior consultant, travel when necessary, and managed one of the largest territories in the country for a pharmaceutical company, yada, yada, yada. Kind of just talked about myself and the things that I'd been doing prior to getting this role. And when I told him that, so he literally stopped and he said, so how did you get this job? Y'all, that's what he asked me. He stopped me and said, so how did you get this job? Basically, he wanted to know how, with my background, did I qualify to get this job? That's what he wanted to know. He immediately decided that I was not supposed to be there. That's what he decided in his mind, that I was not supposed to be in that seat, in that chair, in that role. That's what he decided about me. He does not know me. He does not know the experiences that I've had. I've only shared with him in a small few minutes of what it is that I know in my expertise. He doesn't know where I went to college. At that point, he doesn't know that I'm working on my master's, nothing. Okay. He decides then and there, I am not supposed to be in that chair. So imagine how I feel. I'm with a whole new group of people. I am working. I just started a new job. I'm at orientation, and a man looks at me and says, how did you get this job? Like, you're not supposed to be here. I was so taken aback by the fact that he was bold enough, as a man that doesn't know me, to say, you shouldn't have this job. Okay. I was so upset. I felt myself get really, really nervous. I felt myself like my heart started beating really fast. I had never been in a situation where someone told me I wasn't supposed to be in the seat that I'm in, not to my face. So what do I do in that situation? Okay. You're in a corporate situation, you're at a lunch, everybody's supposed to be talking and getting to know each other. You just started a new job, you don't know anybody at the company, and somebody asks you flat out, how did you get this job? Like straight like that. So I had to figure out what to say. Of course, I was offended. So I then go on to say, well, one of the VPs at the company actually reached out to me and told me that this role was open. I applied and I got the job. And I kept it straight like that. So then he goes on to say, and I thought he was going to be done talking to me, guys. Like, I did not think that he was going to keep prying and prying and prying. But what he noticed is that I was not confident. So when a bully finds out that you have a slither of dig, and so he did. So let me tell you what he said next. So I just kind of tried to eat my food, and I felt myself feeling very, very embarrassed. There was a guy sitting beside me who I was introduced to earlier, and he was so surprised. He also was embarrassed that this guy was asking me these questions and in that tone, but he didn't say a word. He just kind of like looked at me, and I knew he felt so bad for me. I'm a Black woman, the only one of two Black women in this social setting at work. So I start to eat my food. I just kind of like, I'm shriveling up inside. So then he goes on to say, so do you have kids? And I said, yes, at that time I had a 1-year-old, and I also had a 4-year-old. So my kids are like 4 years apart. And so I told him, I said, yep, I do. I have 2 kids. And I told him, and he was like, so where are your kids at? And I was like, they're at home. And he was like, so you just left your kids, you're out here working, and dad's at home with the kids? And I was like, yes. And he was like, oh, okay. So mom just goes away and leaves her kids. Y'all, he literally said this to me. Okay. And this is in the 21st century. Yes, he said this to me. I think back then it was I want to say 2017 when this took place. So in 2017, he literally looked at me and said, "So mom just left kids at home with dad and she's just gone." And y'all, when I tell you I was mortified, I was mortified because what he was implying is that as a woman, I am working and I left my kids behind. That's what he said. That's what he was basically questioning me about. And I literally remember feeling like a rug was pulled from under me. So let me tell you what I would do differently about that situation real quick. What would I've done differently now, knowing who I am and realizing the power that I hold? Because there are only a couple of reasons why someone would do that to you. He recognized the power that I held, right? But he also recognized a weakness that I had as well. He was intimidated by the fact that I was there. I was the youngest one. Okay, so we're gonna tie this back into why I'm a pink elephant and why you probably are too. I was the youngest person in this setting and in this role that had gotten this position. The youngest one. I was one of the two Black women at that point in this particular setting. Okay. And then there were only about four other Black people there. So he recognized that this could be a moment to call me out. Right. And when he recognized how it made me feel, he took that opportunity to dig a little bit deeper. Now, what I would do differently if I had the opportunity, what I would do differently is one, when he asked me, how did I get that position? I would simply ask him, well, what do you mean by that? And then I would require him to have to explain himself. Because one thing that you should do, and one tip that I would give, if I don't give any other thing, and if you don't take anything else from this, instead of always being quick to respond, let there be a pause. Because sometimes that uncomfortable silence helps people to take a moment to realize who they are and what they're trying to do. And they realize the power that you hold to sit in uncomfortable silence with them. And it allows them to have to figure out who they are and what they're trying to say. Can you really say what it is that you really want to say to me? By pushing it back on them, you put the ball back in their court. So I would have asked him, I'm sorry, I don't understand that question. What do you mean by that? And I would have forced him to have to ask the question in the way that he wanted to ask. He wanted to ask me, how in the world did you get this job? That's what he wanted to ask me. And I wanted to, and what I would have done differently is made him have to ask me that. Okay. Ask me straight up, how in the world did you get this job? You shouldn't be here. He would have had to say that to me. Instead, I said, well, I gave him too much of an explanation. He didn't deserve an explanation about how I got there. And if he had gone on to ask me, well, what I mean is, tell me more about your background. And then I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Then I'll tell him more about my background. And guess what I would have done? I would have asked him about his, because I can guarantee you that his background doesn't outweigh mine. Because a person who is confident about who they are and what they've done and their accolades and their awards and things like that would not feel the need to bring you down. So by allowing him to have a moment to explain his resume to me, been able to flip that power back. I would have had the power then, and he would have had to answer my questions. Okay. Now, when he started to talk about my family, right? I probably would have done, and I'm gonna be honest with you, because I think that goes so far across the line in terms of, um, in terms of getting like it has nothing to do with work. He went too far. So when he started to ask me about me being a mom, he crossed every single line that there is, and I would have called him out on that. I would have been like, that is inappropriate. That is an inappropriate question to ask me, because as a woman, I would never ask a man why he's at work and where his kids are. So you have no right to ask me that. And I don't appreciate you asking me that. That is inappropriate. I would have been firm on it, and I would have said that right then and there. Because as a woman, we continue to brush things under the rug and sweep them under the rug and act like and put this shield over it to make it seem like it's okay to be asked those questions. People will continue to do that. And that's not okay. That's not okay. So I remember that instance very, very vividly, to the point where I went back to my hotel room and I cried. I called my husband and I told him what happened, and I cried and I cried. And then I got so upset that I said, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this. I called the trainer who was leading our training session for the week, and I talked to her about it. And you know, I don't blame her for this, but this was the way that she responded. She said, "Wow, Shanae, I am so sorry that that happened to you. But, and I don't want to make an excuse for him, but just to give you a little bit of insight to who he is, he's a Mormon and his wife stays at home with their children. And so he was speaking from that space. I don't care if he's Mormon. He has no right to question me and my choices and how I live my life and my children and my family and my husband and my career choices. He had no right to do that. So by him being Mormon, that does not excuse his behavior. It was inappropriate for work and it was not right. Okay. So that was her way of letting me know that there was more background and context to those questions, but still it wasn't appropriate. And I didn't appreciate that explanation. But she did go and talk to him. And then he came to me and said, "Well, I didn't know that I offended you. I'm sorry if I offended you. I didn't mean it like that." You did. You meant it exactly like that. You did. But he did come to me and he did apologize to me. And I was proud of myself to have at least addressed it with her. But going back, as the woman that I am today, I would never let anyone disrespect me like that ever again. I don't care what setting we're in. I don't care any differences. I don't care your degrees. I don't care how long you worked in your position. You will never, ever have an opportunity to make me feel small. And we have to remember that the power to feel small is within us. No one can make you feel small. That is why my brand is so important to me. Being a pink elephant is all about stepping into power and knowing your power every time you walk into a room. It doesn't matter if you're the youngest. It doesn't matter if you're the only Black woman. It doesn't matter if you're the only woman. It doesn't matter if you have less experience. It doesn't matter if you went to a community college and people went to Harvard or Yale. You belong exactly where you are, and it's all about owning it. And when you walk into the space, taking up the space that you know belongs to you. So, if I could give any advice to any one person who watches this video, I would like to empower you to let you know that you have not been put into a position a door has not been opened for you not to walk into it with power and grace. What do I mean by that? No door has been opened by accident. So the next time that you have an opportunity to walk into a new role, if you have an opportunity to experience a new experience, whether it be you were invited to attend a dinner at let's say an affluent person's house or something like that, or influential person's house, or you've been invited to be a part of a conversation that's big, or make big decisions, or sit at a table where decisions are being made, just know that because you have been invited and the door has been opened to you, that you absolutely belong there. And when you go into that, knowing that that power will be there and it will be felt across the room, no one has the power or authority to take that from you. So I am going to create a video per a request of one of the viewers of what it looks like to interact in a work environment. So when you're networking and when you're in an experience where you're around people from your job, what does that look like? And give some tips on how I've been able to manage those situations. Now, I have not always done it right, but I can share with you what I've done and what I've done to make it work for me. Now, everyone is different, obviously, and of course you'll take things from it, but I do want to invite you to consider new ways of dealing with these situations. And it's all about a mindset shift. If you go into it knowing who you are, it changes the interactions and it also changes the experience that you have while you're in those spaces. So Thank you so much for everyone that tuned in. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Make sure you share this video. Leave me comments. Let me know if you've ever experienced something like that in a corporate environment or in a work environment where someone tried to make you feel small or called you out or question why you're there. Let me know, and let's talk about that some more, because guess what? I know I'm not the only one who has experienced things like that. And we need to all let each other know that we see each other, right? And that you're not alone. So until next time, thank you guys for watching. This is the Pink Elephant, and I hope to see you soon. Bye, y'all.